Hi there. My name is Beverly, and I'm 53 years old. For 22 years, I raised my son alone after his father walked out when he was just 2. Every Mother's Day was our special tradition until he got married 2 years ago. This year, I thought things would be different when he texted me an invitation to lunch. I was so excited, thinking we'd finally reconnect like the old days. But sometimes the people you love most can break your heart in ways you never imagined possible. Before we dive into what happened that day, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you've ever felt overlooked by someone you've sacrificed everything for, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Now let me tell you about the Mother's Day that changed everything. Let me take you back to the beginning to understand just how close my son and I used to be. When his father left us, I made a promise to myself that this little boy would never feel abandoned again. I worked double shifts as a nurse to keep us afloat, but no matter how exhausted I was, Mother's Day was always magical. Every year he'd wake me up with breakfast in bed, burnt toast, watery orange juice, and scrambled eggs that looked more like soup. But his proud smile made it taste like a 5-star meal. He'd present me with handmade cards covered in crayon hearts and glitter that I'd find sparkling on my uniform for weeks. One year, when he was 8, he saved his allowance for 3 months to buy me a little ceramic owl because he said it reminded him of how wise I was. Our bond grew stronger as he got older. Friday nights were movie nights. We'd take turns picking films, make popcorn, and debate every plot twist. He'd tell me about school crushes, friend drama, and his dreams of becoming an engineer. When he left for college, I cried for hours, but he called me every single day without fail. Those calls were the highlight of my existence. He'd share everything from cafeteria complaints to exam stress. During his junior year, he met Stephanie at a campus coffee shop. I'll never forget his excitement when he first mentioned her. His voice had this new lightness, this joy I hadn't heard before. I was genuinely happy for him because all I ever wanted was his happiness. When he graduated and got his engineering job, I watched him transform into this confident, successful man. Stephanie seemed lovely during their visits home. She was polite, complimented my cooking, and appeared to truly care about him. When they announced their engagement, I cried tears of joy. I thought I was gaining a daughter, not losing my son. The warning signs started small, so subtle I convinced myself I was being paranoid. After their wedding 2 years ago, something shifted in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on at first. The daily phone calls became weekly, then every few weeks. When I'd call, conversations felt rushed, distracted. He'd say things like, "Can I call you back later, Mom?" But those return calls rarely came. The first major blow was Thanksgiving that year. We'd always spend it together, just the two of us, with our traditional turkey sandwich lunch and Macy's parade. But that November, he called 3 days before to say they were having dinner with Stephanie's parents instead. "It's important to Stephanie that we establish new traditions with both families," he explained, but his voice sounded rehearsed. Christmas was worse. I was invited, but only for 2 hours in the afternoon. I sat on their pristine white couch watching Stephanie open expensive gifts from my son while I'd given him a simple sweater I'd knitted during sleepless nights. She called him honey and sweetheart, constantly terms that felt like tiny claims being staked in front of me. The most painful moment came during his birthday in March. I'd planned to take him to dinner at the steakhouse where we'd celebrated every birthday since he was 12. But when I called to confirm, he told me Stephanie had already made reservations somewhere else. "She thought it would be nice to try something new," he said. That restaurant had been our place filled with 20 years of birthday memories, now apparently too old-fashioned for his new life. I started feeling like a tolerated guest in my own son's world. During rare visits, Stephanie would hover nearby, steering conversations toward topics I knew nothing about their new friends. Expensive vacation plans, home, renovation ideas. I'd sit there smiling and nodding, feeling increasingly invisible. The final warning came last Easter. I wasn't invited to their dinner, but was told I could stop by for coffee afterward if I wanted. When I arrived, cleanup was already underway. Stephanie was putting leftover ham in containers while my son loaded the dishwasher. I felt like I was interrupting their real family time, picking up crumbs of attention. That night, I stared at old photo albums, wondering when I'd become such an inconvenience. But I kept telling myself this was normal. Married couples needed space. I was being too clingy. Maybe if I backed off more, things would improve naturally. Then came the text message that changed everything. It was a Thursday evening in early May when my phone buzzed with a message from him. "Mom, let's have lunch Sunday, just us. I miss our talks." I must have read those words 50 times each time, feeling my heart swell a little more. Just us felt like a promise, like he'd finally realized what we'd been missing. I immediately texted back, "I'd love that. What time and where?" His response came quickly. "Olive Garden on 5th Street, 1 o'clock. Can't wait to catch up properly." That night, I barely slept from excitement. I planned our conversation carefully. I wanted to tell him how much I missed him without sounding needy. I practiced expressing how Stephanie seemed wonderful, but that I hoped we could maintain our special bond too. I chose my words carefully, wanting to sound supportive rather than jealous. Saturday was spent preparing like I was going to a job interview. I bought a new blue dress because he'd always said blue was my best color. I got my hair styled for the first time in months, chose my favorite perfume, and even got a manicure. Looking in the mirror Sunday morning, I felt prettier and more hopeful than I had in ages. I wrapped the gift I'd been saving, a vintage pocket watch that had belonged to his grandfather, my father. He'd always admired it as a child, and I thought this lunch would be the perfect time to pass it down. The symbolism felt right, time connecting generations, memories linking past to future. Arriving at Olive Garden 15 minutes early, I chose a quiet table near the window where we could talk without interruption. I ordered 2 waters and placed the wrapped gift beside my purse. Every few minutes, I checked my phone for updates, smiling at other families enjoying their Mother's Day brunches around me. 1 o'clock came and went. By 1:15, I started feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. I texted, "Hi, honey, I'm here whenever you're ready." No response. By 1:30, I called and got voicemail. The cheerful family conversations around me started feeling like mockery. The server approached again, this time with gentle concern. "Ma'am, would you like to order something while you wait?" Her kindness somehow made it worse. I nodded and ordered a Caesar salad, then added chicken Alfredo because it was his favorite dish from our old dinner dates. Maybe if I ordered for both of us, he'd somehow materialize. Eating alone on Mother's Day felt surreal. I chewed mechanically, watching families celebrate around me. A little girl at the next table presented her mom with dandelions she'd picked from the parking lot. An elderly woman received a beautiful bouquet from her adult daughter. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere except me. I tried calling twice more each time, hearing his voice on the recording. "Hey, you've reached James. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." But I couldn't find words to leave. What do you say when your own child stands you up on Mother's Day? By 2:30, I'd accepted he wasn't coming. I ordered tiramisu, not because I wanted dessert, but because I needed time to process this rejection. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe Stephanie had gotten sick. Maybe his phone died. I crafted excuse after excuse, each one feeling more desperate than the last. That's when I opened Facebook to distract myself with other people's Mother's Day celebrations. I scrolled past dozens of happy photos, flowers, brunches, heartfelt posts about amazing mothers. Then I saw it. Posted 27 minutes earlier, a photo that stopped my world completely. There was my son, my only child, sitting in what looked like an upscale restaurant. He was beaming at the camera with his arm around Stephanie. She was holding a stunning bouquet of red roses and wearing the exact pearl earrings I'd given him for her last birthday. But it was the caption that shattered me, celebrating the most amazing woman in my life. "Happy Mother's Day to my real mother, Stephanie. Thank you for showing me what unconditional love really means." I read it again, then again. The words, "real mother," hit me like physical blows. Unconditional love. I stared at those roses, probably costing more than my entire outfit. The comments were already pouring in from his friends. "She's amazing. You're so lucky. Best stepmom ever." I scrolled down and found more photos. Stephanie opening gifts, a gorgeous bracelet that looked suspiciously like one I'd given him years ago now, repurposed. Her laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. Both of them looking blissfully happy in their private Mother's Day celebration. Sitting in that restaurant, surrounded by the echoes of genuine family love, I felt something die inside me. 22 years of single motherhood, 22 years of sacrificing, saving, working extra shifts to give him everything. 22 Mother's Days when he'd made me feel like the most important person in his universe. And now I was being replaced by someone who'd known him for 3 years. I drove home in a fog. That phone screen burned into my memory. The house felt different when I walked in, emptier somehow, like it knew something had fundamentally changed. I sat on my couch, still in my new blue dress, staring at the wrapped gift that would never be given. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo, his proud smile, her perfect roses, those devastating words. Real mother. What did that make me? The fake one. The practice round. Around midnight, my phone rang. His name appeared on the screen, and for a split second, my heart leaped with hope. Maybe he'd call to explain, to apologize, to somehow make this right. "Hey, Mom!" His voice was casual, almost cheerful. "Sorry about today. Something came up last minute. Rain check. Something came up. Not an emergency, not a family crisis, just something." I held the phone listening to him breathe, waiting for more explanation. It never came. "Okay," I whispered, because what else was there to say? "Great, I'll call you later this week to reschedule. Love you." He hung up before I could respond. Love you. The words that once meant everything now felt hollow, automatic. That's when I made my decision. If I meant so little to him that he could lie to my face after publicly celebrating another woman as his real mother, then maybe it was time he learned what life looked like without me in it. I spent the rest of that night planning my disappearance. Not permanently, but long enough to see if he'd even notice I was gone. I called my sister Margaret in Oregon, something I rarely did. When I explained what happened, she immediately invited me to stay at her farm for as long as I needed. Tuesday morning, I called my supervisor at the hospital and requested emergency family leave. I'd been working there for 15 years without taking significant time off. They granted me 4 weeks immediately. I arranged for my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, to collect mail and water plants, telling her I needed time away, but keeping details vague. The hardest part was changing my phone number and deactivating social media accounts. I wanted to see if he'd try to reach me, but I also needed clean breaks from the life where I'd apparently become expendable. I packed carefully, taking only essentials and a few photo albums. Before leaving, I wrote him a long letter explaining my hurt, my disappointment, and my love that would never change despite his choices. But I sealed it without sending it. If he wanted me back in his life, he'd have to figure out why I left on his own. The 14-hour drive to Oregon felt liberating. For the first time in months, I wasn't wondering when he'd call, whether I'd be included in his plans, or how to navigate conversations around Stephanie. I was just Beverly driving towards something new. Margaret's farm was exactly what my soul needed. She'd divorced her husband 5 years earlier after discovering his affair, and she'd rebuilt her life beautifully. She had horses, chickens, a massive garden, and a peaceful confidence I envied immediately. "You look exhausted," she said when I arrived, wrapping me in the kind of hug I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Not physically tired, soul tired. Those first weeks were healing in ways I hadn't expected. I helped with morning horse feedings, learned to make bread from scratch, and joined Margaret's yoga class in town. I read novels I'd been meaning to pick up for years. I painted watercolors on the back porch, something I'd abandoned decades ago when single motherhood consumed all my creative energy. Margaret shared stories about rebuilding after betrayal. "When someone shows you who they really are," she said one evening as we watched the sunset, "believe them the first time. Your son has shown you that your love and sacrifice don't matter to him right now. Maybe they will again someday, but not until he realizes what he's lost." 3 weeks into my stay, Margaret mentioned that someone had been calling the house phone repeatedly, always hanging up when she answered. My old neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had also called Margaret directly, saying a young man had been coming by daily, knocking frantically and looking increasingly desperate. "Do you want to know what he's been saying?" Margaret asked gently. I thought about it. Part of me was curious, but a bigger part felt satisfied, knowing he was finally experiencing my absence. "Not yet," I said. "I'm not ready." The 4th week, Margaret handed me her laptop with an email pulled up. "This one, you need to see." It was from James, sent to Margaret's old email address he'd somehow remembered from holiday cards years ago. The subject line read, "Please help me find my mom." The message was frantic, desperate, and completely different from the casual dismissal I'd received that horrible Mother's Day. "Margaret, I don't know if Mom told you what happened, but I think I've made the biggest mistake of my life. Stephanie left me 2 weeks ago. She said I had mommy issues and that she couldn't compete with my obsession with pleasing my mother. She took the engagement ring and moved back with her parents. I've been trying to reach Mom for weeks. Her phone is disconnected. She's not answering emails. Mrs. Patterson won't tell me where she went. I'm scared something happened to her. I just need to know she's okay, and I need to tell her I'm sorry." Reading those words, I felt a complex mix of vindication and sadness. Stephanie had left him, probably realizing that his need to completely replace me with her was unhealthy. In trying to prove his devotion to his new, real mother, he'd destroyed both relationships. But I wasn't ready to rescue him yet. Margaret and I talked long into the night about the importance of letting people face consequences. "If you go running back now," she warned, "he'll never truly understand what he put you through." I spent 2 more days thinking before picking up Margaret's phone to call him. When James answered, his voice was raw with relief. "Mom, oh God, Mom, where are you? I've been so scared." "I'm safe," I said quietly. "I'm with Margaret in Oregon." "Oregon, Mom, what? Why did you leave? I've been trying to reach you for weeks." For the first time in our relationship, I didn't immediately comfort him. Instead, I let the question hang in the air, waiting for him to connect his own dots. "Is this about Mother's Day? Because I told you something came up." "James," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I saw your Facebook post." The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost hear him remembering, realizing, understanding the full scope of what he'd done. "Mom," he whispered, "I am so sorry. I spent 22 years being your only parent. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. I cheered at every baseball game, helped with every school project, listened to every heartbreak, and you publicly called another woman your real mother while I sat alone in a restaurant waiting for you." He was crying now. I know, and I hate myself for it. Stephanie made me feel like I had to choose between you two, and I chose wrong. She's gone now anyway. She said I was too attached to you, which is crazy because I obviously wasn't attached enough." The irony was painful. In trying to prove his independence from me, he'd shown Stephanie just how much he actually needed his mother's approval. His overcompensation had backfired spectacularly. "I want to come home," I told him. "But things have to change. I won't be treated like an optional extra in your life. I won't be hidden or dismissed or replaced. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on mutual respect." "Yes," he said immediately. "Anything. Mom, I'm so sorry. We'll start slowly. Coffee once a week, no promises beyond that." The drive home felt different than the drive away. I wasn't running from pain anymore. I was returning with boundaries, self-respect, and a clear understanding of my own worth. Our first coffee meeting was awkward but honest. James looked tired, humbled, genuinely remorseful. He apologized repeatedly, not just for Mother's Day, but for months of making me feel invisible. We talked about Stephanie, about his fear of seeming too dependent on me, about how his attempt to create distance had hurt us both. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt our relationship on healthier ground. I maintained my new interests, my yoga classes, my painting. I didn't make him the center of my universe again. And perhaps because of that, he valued our time together more than he had in years. 6 months later, our bond was stronger than it had been before his marriage, based on honest communication and mutual respect rather than my desperate need to be needed. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disappear long enough for someone to realize your true value. I discovered that my worth wasn't determined by how much others needed me, but by how much I respected myself. Sometimes people need to lose something completely before they understand what they had. My son learned that lesson the hard way, but he learned it thoroughly. And I learned that love without boundaries isn't really love at all. It's just desperation dressed up in good intentions. Have you ever had to step away from someone you love to teach them your value? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by how others treat them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappear until people remember why they need you. Take care of yourselves.